to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Mike Russell, the Director of Athletics at Westfield High School, which will be opening up this August. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Hutch. Happy to be here.
Let's have you talk for a minute about your younger years, where you grew up, where you went to high school, college, your first job, etc.
Okay. I grew up in South Ogden, Utah. My dad was a coach, so I had that background growing up. He coached at Ogden High for 40 years, and so I grew up going to their games and, basically raised in a gym. I ended up going to Ogden High myself, class of 2000. My dad was in athletic administration later in his career as well, so I kind of saw what he did, and I was steered that way out of high school. I went on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then when I got home, I got into school at Weber State, and I wasn't completely sure which direction I was going to go, but I started coaching. I coached freshman boys basketball at Ogden High, and then I kind of started veering that way towards education, and so I coached at Ogden for over the course of 3 years while I was still in school, and then I actually had an opportunity to jump over to Bonneville High School, and I wasn't sure about that job. I never really thought I wanted to coach girls, and my dad coached girls basketball, and so he encouraged me to apply for the job, just more or less to get some experience with an interview. And so I did that, not thinking anything would come of it, and I ended up getting the job. That was my first tied to a teaching position. And so I was at Bonneville for 8 years, and I had the opportunity the last 4 years at Bonneville to work in athletic administration. I was the athletic director there for that time, and then I had an awesome opportunity to go down to Snow College and took my family down to Ephraim, and I was the head women's basketball coach down there for 6 years. And then we decided to closer, and so I took a job at Syracuse High School. I teaching at Syracuse. I was the boys basketball coach there. Thought it was a great opportunity for the district, and my family. That's perfect.
Thanks for sharing that. Talk for a minute. You mentioned your dad, of course, and we'll talk about him a little bit later because he was a real good friend of mine. But talk about the youth sports opportunities you had before you got to high school at Ogden.
I had a lot of opportunities, and that's one of the awesome things about my dad. As busy as he was, he always found time to coach my teams and be involved there. Growing up, I played basketball and baseball. I played Little League football. When I got into junior high, I did track and field. And so I just had a lot of opportunities prior to getting into high school.
Let's have you share with our audience some of the mentors, some of the leaders in your life. I know your dad's probably number one on the list, but talk about him and some of the other people that really had an influence on you as to where you are right now.
My dad was first and foremost, that mentor, that person I could always go to and ask advice. But I had great coaches growing up. One of the better coaches and mentors I had was actually my junior high basketball coach, and he coached me in football as well. His name's Barry Jones, and he's actually an assistant coach down at Enterprise High School now. He moved down south years ago, but he was a guy that really shaped and molded my life. Those junior high years, you're so impressionable, and he made a lasting impact upon me. We still communicate today, and he was one. And then I played for Mitch Wilcox at Ogden High. He was another good one. Just seemed to get the most out of me and out of my teammates. And still today, I mean, he's a friend. We talk all the time and communicate. And but just a lot of the coaches that my father worked with were mentors to me. I looked up to Steve Coburn. He was a young coach at Ogden High, and he just actually retired as the head football coach at Wasatch High. But just another great guy that I just remember, going down to Ogden High. I was young, probably sixth grade, maybe seventh grade, and going to like their Friday night walkthrough and being able to go out and run passes. I still remember pass routes, still remember, those experiences today. So those are a few of the men that really influenced me.
Let me ask you a question totally off the wall and unrelated to what we were talking about. You mentioned you spent some time at Snow, coaching 6 years down there. So the first question is, was Johnny Judkins still there, or had he moved on?
He had moved on. Yep. He was down south at Dixie, Utah Tech.
Okay.
Now. So.
And the second question is, when my daughter attended Snow, and this was back in the late 90s, Snow had the yellow, and now they've got the orange. So which of the colors do you like best, being a person that worked here? You like the newer colors, or you like the older colors with the yellow?
I think I like the newer colors. I like the rebrand, the orange and the blue. That's what we had when I was there. But yeah, I think if you were to ask somebody, somebody that was there back when they had the blue and yellow, they might say that. But yeah, since I was there and that's what we had, that's probably what I'd say.
Perfect. Let's get back to some more serious conversation. Mike, what's the biggest failure or disappointment you had in life, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would probably say they're two separate. I would say the greatest disappointment I had was losing my father when I did. And that's something completely out of my control. I would say that at that time was just, with the pandemic and everything that we went through, that was hard on everybody. But to lose my dad in the manner that we did, that was disappointing for me. But so much good has come from it, and going through that made me a stronger person. It's helped my family, and but I would say, failures, there's too many to list. I mean, in athletics, we fail all the time, and I've probably learned more from those failures than I have from any of the successes I've had as a coach. But hope that answers your question somewhat.
Thank you. Let's since we're talking about your father, let's move that question up about him. I wanted to ask you about being a second generation coach and second generation athletic director. You'll find this in. I first met your dad. Oh my goodness, this has got to be 1984-ish. I'm the women's coach at Jordan High, and obviously he's at Ogden High. And it was back when the basketball tournament was true double elimination. So you had a loser's bracket. We met for that 5-7 game at Westminster. And obviously we lost. Your father's a better coach than I was, but the start of a relationship, my goodness. He and I did so many things through the years, AD wise and coach wise. But talk about there's not a whole lot of second generation ADs in Utah that their father was the athletic director, and they became that. I know Ted Peterson comes to mind up at Weber, and I know there's a couple of others, but just talk about Phil and the great man that he was, and what it's brought you, with the advantage of it. It's given you to become an athletic director.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely given me a lot to live up to. Anybody that knows my dad really knows him, just knew what a great man he was, and just a genuine person to be around. And so I look at that, and I want to really uphold that, and be the same caliber of man that he was. But yeah, there really are so many advantages. And I really think that job at Bonneville, I definitely didn't get the job because of the experience that I had. But I think that the Russell name carried a lot of weight, especially in the Ogden area. And so I think Bonneville probably took a chance on me. Well, I know they did. And that's credit to my dad, not that you should get a job because of who you are, but I feel like having that opportunity, I was able to kind of pave my own path and make a name for myself as a coach. And I've had a little bit different career than he did. He was at the same place for 40 years, and where I've kind of bounced around a little bit, and I've just tried to really do the best that I can everywhere I've been, and that's large in part to him. But yeah, he's always on my mind, and I think all the time, what would he do in this situation? And but yeah, he was always great. Not one to offer a lot of unsolicited advice. He kind of just let me do my thing, and I was always asking him questions. And I did have an opportunity to coach against him. He was still coaching when I started, and so that was another special moment for me. Crosstown games. We were actually in the same region for a couple of years, the Ogden Bonneville, and so that was always special to me too.
And so let me ask you the record between father and son.
That's the one thing that I have him on. I want to say that we were 7-1 against his teams. So yeah,
that's an
had
accomplishment.
some bragging rights. Yeah.
Well, I think back to the like I say, we played a few times after that that first game in '84. But I remember it was a close game down to the wire. We're playing for winning the consolation bracket. And I remember he just ran the two-person game with his point guard and a post, and he took the other three kids out. And I had never seen that. And of course, so I tried to figure out how to try to defend it, and they just kept putting the ball in and out. There was no shot clock. And as soon as I took somebody off the ball and brought it on, they'd break the basket and score an easy layup. And yeah, made me look somewhat foolish. But he had a mind for the game. He was a great coach. So thanks so much for sharing that. Let me ask you this, Mike. The job of AD, go back to when you were first at Bonneville and where you are now, opening up a new school. And we'll talk about the new school here in a minute. How is that job different over the years?
Oh, wow. It's changed a lot. You can start with the sports that have been added since I was at Bonneville. Boys and girls lacrosse is new. Boys volleyball is a new addition. Cheer is sanctioned now. So there's just a lot.
Girls wrestling, sure. Yeah.
Girls wrestling. Yep. There's just more to do. It seems like more is expected of us and required of us in this position. So that's the number one change. At Bonneville, we didn't have turf fields, and so there was a lot of field upkeep and painting, and what that's all about, lining the fields and getting them painted. So it'll be nice to have turf. I don't know if that's the best thing in the world. I think, it's depends who you talk to, but yeah, there definitely is just a lot more.
Let's have you talk about, I think I probably know the answer, but the UIAAA, how you heard about the UIAAA, how you became involved. I think the obvious answer is through your father, but I'm going to let you answer that anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. That's how I heard about it, and I had an opportunity at Bonneville to come down to the conference with him and my wife and my mom at the time. We'd come down and stay down there in St. George, and so yep, he took great pride in his membership in that, and I want to say he had something to do with the raffle they used to do. I can remember that he
We
had the
we still have the basketball with the top cut out on three sides
yeah
that we used for the 50-50, and it's still OHS is still Ogden High right on there. So we still have that.
yeah absolutely yep. So that's you're right. That's how I got involved, and he got me going to those meetings and taking classes, and so yeah, I do have to give him credit for that.
I think back to I'm just reminiscing here. Maybe I shouldn't, but I think back to the Dave Nordquist, Phil Russell connection. I mean, because for me, they were Ogden High ever since. I mean, I started teaching in '79, and when I heard Ogden High, well, actually, I thought the three of them: Mitch Wilcox, Phil Russell, Dave Nordquist.
Yeah.
And so maybe you mentioned Mitch, but maybe talk about some stories with the three of them for a minute.
Oh, I knew Coach Nordquist, very well. Him and my dad used to, so in the summers, they ran a swimming pool together. So they were together all the time. Lauren Farr swimming pool. I don't know if you knew this. That's the same pool that The Sandlot was filmed.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yep. Him and Nord was the pool manager, and my dad was he ran the concession stand, and they did that for a summer job for years. And so, I've known Coach Nordquist forever. He used to go to his baseball camps, and um, he used to live right there by the old McCady, and we used to go to his house. Weber State does a firework display every summer, and we'd park at Nordquist's house and visit with them. And just yeah, coaching was it was a lot different back then. My dad, Coach Nordquist, they coached everything. My dad, I was thinking about this the other day. He coached football and basketball the longest. He was the head volleyball coach for a time. He coached softball as the head coach. He filled in as the baseball coach. There just really wasn't anything that coaches didn't do back then. They just kind of did everything. But yeah, Coach Nordquist, he was a special friend of my dad, and they golfed together a couple days a week. Late, up until the time my dad got sick, just they were best buddies.
That is awesome. You mentioned this, so I want to ask you this, and hopefully I get the answer from you. If Sandlot's got to be what, the mid '90s, so I'm assuming then you were like possibly around the pool when they were filming it. Do you have any stories of that? Because that's
I
an
was.
incredible movie.
Yep, I was. I was at the pool the entire time that they shot. I actually would go down early in the morning and have breakfast with a lot of the crew. They had a huge semi truck with pretty much anything you could want. But yes, I actually was. You wouldn't be able to. I was about the age of the Sandlot kids, just to put it into perspective. But yeah, I was out there when they were filming. I'm in the movie. I could point myself out to you at the swimming pool scene when Wendy Peppercorn jumps in to save Squints.
Uh-huh.
If you look just behind the lifeguard chair, there's a little guy running along. That's me. I've got a towel wrapped around my waist. I still have the towel. I just actually got that from my parents' house. But but yeah, I was down there for that whole thing.
That is totally awesome. That's going to put this episode in the top 10 because I don't because I'm familiar quite a bit with Sandlot. They filmed Vincent Drug down in Midvale, the baseball scenes down in Rose Park, that type of a thing. But I
Yeah,
never put the two and two together about the swimming pool. So
yeah,
thank you for mentioning that. And that is so you were in this. Did you
I
get
was in it.
Did you get name credit at all, or just that quick
Oh no,
scene?
no. So it was funny how it worked out. I hadn't really planned on it. I was just down kind of hanging out. I know a lot of the older people in it. A lot of the older kids, like the high school aged kids at the pool, were Ogden High students.
Hmm.
Ogden High, Ben Lomond, you know. Um,
Sure.
so, but I was just hanging around, and the director just kind of said, "Hey, come on out," kind of a thing, and so I didn't have like an old fashioned swimming suit on, and that's why I wrapped a towel around me. So I probably had like a bright green or blue swimsuit on at the time. So I just ran out there and pretended like I knew what I was doing. And so
That is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
yeah,
So let's get to the question that, at least the most burning question on my mind. You've been the AD at Westfield for over a year now. Westfield's going to open this office. Or this August. I want you to talk to our audience about the challenges, the positives, the good and the bad, about opening a brand new school. And then of course, tell us where it's at, et cetera, for those who don't know.
yeah. So Westfield, I'll tell you that first. Westfield is if you know where Fremont High School is,
Hmm.
out west in Ogden. We're a good 5 minute drive south is all. That's how close we are to Fremont. So we're about on the same west as them, just a little bit south. The city's considered Taylor. It's Taylor, Utah. And so
Hmm.
I think when they redid the boundaries, most of our students will come from Fremont, and then we have a small portion that are coming from Roy High. So Fremont's student bodies, probably 800 to 900 kids from Fremont are coming. So I would say that's the most challenging thing. It's been a really positive experience. Um, the hard part is, the splitting of a new school.
Right.
Fremont's been out there. They've been the only thing out there for 30 years. And now all of a sudden there's this new big, beautiful building, new school. I think, people kind of get in their feelings about stuff like that. It's something different. And other than that, it's been really positive. There's a lot of excitement in the area about our school opening. I think it's more than time for a new school out that way, and so we're really excited. But yeah, as you mentioned, started working about a year ago. I think from August through September, October, it was kind of slow. We started hiring just as I want to say as fall sports were wrapping up. That's when we started hiring coaches. Um,
Yeah, and
but
I wanted to be more specific about that because never having opened a new school, it would make sense to me that you really couldn't hire anyone till that fall season was over, at least for the fall sports. But in addition to that question, did you have to wait till the spring sports were over? Or excuse me, the winter
no,
sports to hire your basketball? Because that could be tough hiring them during the middle of the season also.
yeah, yeah, it was tough. So yes, we did wait till the end of the fall season, and we also waited for the most part for the winter sports. Um, I want to say we did drill and cheer a little earlier, just to just because their season there was some things to get done because they've already had tryouts and selected their teams. But for spring sports, we did post the jobs right as the seasons were getting started, which which made it a little more complicated. We did hire a couple of coaches that were currently head coaches at other schools. And it was different. Every situation was different. Some coaches were very good about, announcing it and letting their teams know and finishing their season strong, where there were some that preferred us to wait till the season was over before we announced it. So that was kind of, we just hired our last coach. Actually, we just named our track and field coach yesterday. So everybody's been hired. But that's the hiring aspect of things. But one major thing that I was involved in was purchasing. And that's still really busy. Just still, just making sure everybody has what they need to get started. And I'm sure we'll forget something, but that's between that and making sure we're set up, our new regions, Region 11, up there, most of them are up north in Cache Valley, and then we got Bear River, but they've been great they're very welcoming and been great about having us, been to their meetings, and it's been a lot. It's got, as I said, it was kind of started out slow, but once Christmas came, it's been really, really busy. And now that we're out of school and my work schedule's a little different, June is kind of slow. We're still trying to purchase things, but July is when we're going to start moving in. And so it's going to get really busy because we've delayed shipping on a lot of things we've ordered. So
Sure. Do you suspect that you're going to start out as a 4A school population wise? Do you expect, or do they expect the district that probably moving to 5A after 2 years, or do you think you'll be smaller for a while?
I think we'll move. So we come in at an odd time where it's right in the middle of this realignment. So
Right.
We're probably going to be around 1250 when we open this fall. And we anticipate growing by 300 or 400 students that first year. So I think we'll be large enough to be 5A, even if it's a smaller 5A. Logistically, that would probably be easier on us. We're going to be spending a lot of time traveling north with this region, which it's great. It's fine. But yeah, I see us being 5A that next year.
All right. What's your favorite part of your job, Mike?
My favorite part of this job is, just getting to interact with the coaches. We have our first coaches meeting Monday evening. Just being able to help coaches. We have a lot of young coaches, and that's one thing that's different now than when I was at Bonneville. I feel like, I was a younger AD at Bonneville, and I feel like I'm more in a position now, and I have more experience that will help me be more of a mentor to coaches. And I'm really looking forward to that, just to making sure our coaches, have someone that can help. I hope to be able to, mentor our coaches where needed and help them be successful.
Very good. Let's finish up with a couple of questions. The first one being, I need 2 suggestions from you for a new athletic administrator to be successful, and they need to follow Mike's 2 suggestions in order to achieve that success. What would your 2 suggestions be?
The first one I would say is organization. I think that's one thing that I do really well. I'm very organized, and I think if you're not, that would lead to a lot of I don't think failure is the right word, but just a lot of complications in this job if you don't have your ducks in a row and you don't there's just so many moving parts to this job. And I've seen that with just, this last year, especially. I was telling my wife the other day, it's so much different because every coach is new. It's one thing to hire, a coach or two throughout the course of the school year, but we have 21 new coaches. And so, it's a little daunting to think that, we got to make sure all these people are on the same page and that they all kind of know what's expected of them. So I would say organization, that's first and foremost. And then the next thing, I just think kind of what I've already said. I think a lot of opportunities are lost for someone in this position to mentor coaches. I think a lot of times it gets. I heard an AD say this once, that they felt like kind of a glorified custodian. They're doing a lot of mowing the grass and painting the fields and doing all that stuff. But I think that's important. But I think the most important job is to make sure that coaches have somebody that they can lean on and that they can go to. And I think in my role, if I see something that I don't think is going well with a coach, or if I see them do something I think they should be doing differently, I'm not afraid to approaching them and at least offering my advice or a suggestion. I think that's really important in this role, that we're leaders and that we try to set the example. And that's another opportunity. I still am able to coach. They're allowing me to coach, and so I'm the boys basketball coach at Westfield, and I feel like that's a great opportunity for me to kind of lead out and show, be the poster boy of how to do things from an organizational standpoint to just conduct on the sideline, even just modeling it. So those are probably my two.
Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing. We'll finish with this. Mike, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I think you did a great job. You could have asked more of just wanting to know just the whole, how we're navigating all these kids coming to Westfield.
Well, spend a moment
pretty interesting.
and tell us that, because there's not a whole lot of skit to open that new school.
Yeah, I mean, every kid, regardless of where they live, they come through with Register My Athlete. They're all flagged as transfers. So I have to go in, every kid that registers, I have to go in and verify their address, and I can override it. But that's been quite a process to do that. Every day I get probably, between 5 and 6 notifications that kids are transferring. Now, they're not legitimate transfers. They live in our boundary.
Right.
But that's been a really busy part for me, just making sure a lot of the logistical stuff is done. And then we also have I think Westfield's going to be kind of a destination. I think that it's a different school. It's not set up like a traditional high school. It's based on collaboration, and teachers don't have their own classrooms. It's kind of like a college where they have an office and they go to a classroom and they teach, and then they leave. They don't have things plastered all over the walls, because it's not really their classroom. They might teach in 1 or 2 different ones throughout the day. But I think it's going to be a great school for education wise. And I think one other thing that we have is we have a field house, which will be nice, an indoor facility, which I think will be pretty awesome to have especially for our spring sports. How nasty the weather. Yeah, how nasty the weather can get, and then when that's the case, it seems like the gyms are backed up till 10 p.m. at night. So
absolutely,
we have a space now that our teams can go out, and it's a 40-yard turf field with we have 4 cages in it, and we have golf netting, so our golf team can hit out there. So that'll be a game changer for us as well.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
You bet.
That note finishes this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Mike Russell, the Director of Athletics at Westfield High School. Mike, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.